You're recording, aren't you?
Guinevere. Yeah, Guinevere is.
I'm gonna fail, I can just tell you.
I believe in you, Sarah.
I'm failing at this challenge.
Oh, I don't know which one it is.
I feel like the feng shui of the class is thrown off. Abby, would you rather sit here? I'll move. So you can be across from Sarah.
You know, Sarah, I just want you to trust the process. Just trust the process.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so if I get anything less than an A on my next test, I don't take the final?
You know, you're going to be good. That's all I want to say. You're going to be good.
She's gonna be like crying the day before the test. Like, I shouldn't have listened to
No, she's going to be like, can everybody send me their notes?
I'll take really good notes, Sarah. Just kidding.
I'm just kidding, I won't.
No. Like, I don't think anyone likes my notes because, like, sometimes, like, the other day when I was, like, texting you and I typed and I wrote what I was supposed to text instead of on the notes.
I think it was Emily, actually.
No, I did it. And Emily thought it was you, but it was me.
Okay.
We went
Now,
over this in the parking lot.
what I've drawn here
There's a scapula.
is a
and
scapula
clavicle.
and its articulation with the clavicle. Okay? Acromioclavicular joint, remember that?
Yes.
Good times. Good times.
Pretty fun time.
For most of those days.
Now, this muscle right here, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 sides, none of which are parallel. It kind of reminds people of a trapezoid. So we're going to call this muscle the trapezius. Yeah, the trapezius. It's a 4-sided figure. See that? And look where it's originating. It's originating from the occipital region of the skull, which is interesting. Now, part of its origin is also a ligament called
The
a nuchal ligament. The nuchal ligament is an elastic ligament. It's made out of elastic connective tissue that's connecting the cervical vertebrae. It runs between the spinous processes. Okay, and so the trapezius is originating from the soft tissue here, and then the spinous processes of C7 all the way down to T12. So it's originating from the vertebral column all the way down to T12. Now, all of that information is in your book, but if you look at it, it's easy to figure out its origin. Occipital region, and then the vertebral column. This part here is actually just the nuchal ligament, and then the spinous processes.
So that's all its origin.
That's all of its origin. It's originating from the midline of the axial skeleton. Now, as it inserts, look here, it inserts laterally, mostly upon the clavicle and the scapula. Some of these fibers are coming down. Okay? They're coming down like this to insert upon the, what is this? The spine of the scapula. Now, not only on the spine of the scapula, but on the acromion process. And then finally, some of these fibers are coming down to insert upon the distal third of the clavicle, like this. Okay? So, if you look down from above, distal third of the clavicle, acromion, spine of the scapula. Now, these are fibers that are coming down from above, but the trapezius is a large muscle. Some of the fibers are moving horizontally from the vertebral column. They're coming like this. And then some of the fibers are coming up or moving upward from the thoracic aspect of the vertebral column. So some of the fibers are actually coming up like this. Okay? And what's interesting about the trapezius is when you contract it, sometimes you can contract mostly these upper fibers, sometimes the middle fibers, and sometimes the lower fibers. They can be contracted independently. Now, if you contract mostly these upper fibers that are descending down upon the scapula and clavicle, you're going to cause elevation of the shoulder, elevation of the scapulae. as if you're shrugging. Doesn't that make sense? Because they're pulling from above. Now, what if you contract these middle fibers that are moving horizontally, laterally, to attach the scapula? Then what happens is you bring the two scapulae closer together, toward the midline. This is called adduction. It's as if you're doing this. Tension! Okay, and you're bringing the scapula back toward each other. Okay? Now, if you contract these lower fibers, okay, as if you're doing an exercise where you're climbing, you're pulling up, you're depressing the scapula, you're bringing the shoulders down. So the point is that the function of the trapezius depends upon which fibers are contracting. Contraction of the trapezius can bring about either elevation of the scapula, adduction, or depression. Okay? Now, in all of these functions, the spine, the acromion, and the clavicle serve as the insertion. In other words, the scapula is what's moving. Okay? You can fix the shoulder and use the occipital portion of the skull as the insertion, in which case the trapezius is then going to assist with extending the head and neck like this. Okay? So remember how we said that the sternocleidomastoid, when we contract both sides together, it's the prayer muscle, as if you're bowing your head? Well, when you use the occipital part of the skull as the insertion and you contract the trapezius, you lift your head back up. So if you're saying yes, not that I'm recommending it, but when you extend the head up like this, you're contracting the upper fibers of the trapezius. Does that make sense? You're just reversing the origin and insertion. Now, what is the nerve that provides innervation to the trapezius?
Accessory.
Accessory, yeah. Accessory innervates both sternocleidomastoid and trapezius. Now, once you commit, okay, once you say, okay, I now know the insertion of the trapezius. It's the spine of the scapula, the acromion, and the clavicle. Once you know that, once you've committed that to memory, spine of the scapula, acromion, distal clavicle, you have now also memorized the origin of the deltoid. Because the deltoid comes off like this. Like this. So the insertion of the trapezius becomes the origin of the deltoid. If we look at that little shoulder model over there. Okay. In blue, remember blue means insertion. Okay? Spine of the scapula, acromion, and the distal third of the clavicle. This is the insertion of the trapezius. We'll look in red. Spine of the scapula, acromion, distal third of the clavicle. Red is for origin. So those same bones become the origin of the deltoid. Of course, what's the innervation to the deltoid? Come on, people don't.
Accessory?
Accessory, no.
Wait, oh, the deltoid.
The deltoid.
Is it musculo?
That would be the muscular.
Axillary.
Axillary.
Yep, thank you, Sarah.
Axillary, folks.
Accessory?
Yeah.
All right, so again, look at the insertion of the trapezius,
I
and
forget
look
that
what's
the
coming off
axillary
of
is a thing.
it, the deltoid. Where does the deltoid insert?
The deltoid tuberosity.
The deltoid tuberosity. Okay? What is the function of the deltoid?
It,
Abduct the arm at the shoulder.
That's right, abduction. So if you're doing jumping jacks, okay, the jumping part where your arms come out, all about the deltoids. When we test the deltoids, here's what we do. We'll take a person, we'll say, okay, hold your elbows out like this. Don't let me push down. Okay? I'm testing the strength in the deltoids. I'm also testing the axillary nerve. So in my mind, when I think of the trapezius, I think of the deltoid right next to it. So I skipped the pectoralis major. But not to worry, Jordan, we're coming right back to it.
So excited.
Whoa, all right, here we go. Again, if you're familiar with the surface anatomy, if you look at this picture, it tells you everything you need to know. We said the origin of the deltoid is the lateral third of the clavicle. Look here, more medially, the pectoralis major comes off the clavicle. It originates from the sternum. And it's going to also originate from the costal cartilages of those first 6 ribs. So here, it's coming off the clavicle, up here. It's coming off the sternum. It's coming off these ribs. That's its origin. The insertion is very important. It inserts upon this area right here, along the intertubercular groove. Okay. So whereas the deltoids abduct, the pectoralis is pulling medially on the humerus, abduct. Not only is it going to bring both humeruses back in toward the midline, abduct, but because it's pulling here, medially rotate. So we're going to learn of 3 muscles that insert upon the intertubercular groove. All 3 of them are pulling on the humerus from a position medial to the humerus. So all 3 are going to adduct, adduct, and medially rotate. Now, because some of the fibers of the pectoralis major are coming down to insert upon the intertubercular groove, when they contract, they assist with flexion at the shoulder. Okay? So the 3 functions of the pectoralis major are abduction, medial rotation, and flexion at the shoulder. How many people here go to gyms? Like once a week or so, twice a week, 3 times a week. Okay? Now, that machine